Imagine the bridge of a billion-dollar Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. The radar systems can track a golf ball flying through the stratosphere. Down in the launch tubes, Tomahawk cruise missiles are primed to hit targets hundreds of miles away with terrifying pinpoint precision. Above them, nuclear-powered supercarriers launch F-35 stealth fighters into the pitch-black night. The United States Navy is the undisputed most technologically advanced maritime force in the history of human civilization. They have spent trillions of dollars preparing to fight high-tech space wars, intercept hypersonic glide vehicles, and dominate the skies. Yet this invincible armada can be completely stopped in its tracks, totally paralyzed, by a single guy in a fiberglass fishing boat, operating under the cover of darkness. He doesn't have radar. He doesn't have stealth. He just pushes a rusted 50-year-old metal cylinder off the back of his boat into the dark waters of the Strait of Hormuz. That $500 metal cylinder is a naval mine, and it is the ultimate nightmare that keeps Pentagon admirals awake at night. Because the terrifying truth, hidden behind classified briefing room doors, is that the mighty US Navy has absolutely no reliable way to stop it. When you hear the word naval mine, you probably picture an old World War II documentary. A giant spiky black iron ball floating on the surface of the water, waiting for a ship to bump into it. But the mines waiting in the Persian Gulf right now are nothing like that. Modern bottom mines are the ultimate silent assassins of the sea. Once pushed off the back of a smuggler's speedboat, they sink into the incredibly shallow, heavily polluted waters of the strait. They don't float. They violently bury themselves deep into the muddy seafloor, instantly camouflaged among sunken fishing boats, lost shipping containers, and decades of industrial trash. Traditional military sonar simply sees them as rocks, but they are not rocks. They possess highly advanced acoustic and magnetic brains. They sit in the pitch black, totally silent, and they listen. They are meticulously programmed to ignore the sound of fishing boats. They even ignore small military patrol vessels. They are waiting for something much bigger. They wait patiently until they hear the massive rhythmic acoustic thrum of a fully loaded commercial oil supertanker passing directly overhead. When the magnetic signature matches, the mine violently detonates. It doesn't just blow a hole in the ship. The explosion creates a colossal high-velocity shockwave of expanding gas directly upward. This explosive bubble hits the underside of the massive steel hull, lifting the entire ship out of the water before dropping it into the void, literally snapping the spine of the tanker completely in half. It sinks in minutes. If you think this is just a theoretical fear, let me take you back to April 14, 1988. The USS Samuel B. Roberts was a highly advanced American guided missile frigate patrolling the Persian Gulf. She was a masterclass in modern naval warfare, costing hundreds of millions of dollars, but none of her advanced radars could see what was waiting in the dark water. Suddenly, a massive, deafening crack echoed across the Gulf. The ship was violently thrown into the air. A fireball ripped through the engine room. An Iranian contact mine, a cheap, primitive explosive that cost less than $1,500 to manufacture, had blown a 15-foot hole in the ship's hull. The massive steel keel was broken. The crew spent the next several hours fighting in utter darkness, surrounded by fire and flooding water, desperately trying to save their ship from sinking into the abyss. It cost the United States Navy nearly $100 million to repair the devastating damage. Do the math. A $1,500 rusted explosive nearly destroyed a 9-figure warship. It is the purest, most brutal expression of asymmetrical warfare. Now imagine Iran dropping not just one, but 3,000 of these modern, vastly more lethal mines into the Strait of Hormuz. To counter this catastrophic threat, the admirals in Washington did what the Pentagon always does. They threw billions of dollars at the problem. They promised the world a brilliant, futuristic solution. It was called the Littoral Combat Ship, or LCS. The Navy spent $30 billion building a fleet of these sleek, high-speed, stealthy vessels. They were supposed to be the ultimate mine-hunting robots. The pitch was incredible. The ship would stay safely out of the minefield, while launching automated sonar sleds and underwater drones to hunt and destroy the hidden explosives. But there was one massive problem. The real ocean is not a controlled laboratory. When the Navy actually deployed these high-tech systems into rough, murky waters, the program violently collapsed into one of the greatest fiascos in modern naval history. The underwater robots malfunctioned. The massive tow cables dragging the sonar sleds simply snapped under the pressure of the ocean currents. The high-tech software couldn't distinguish a lethal mine from an old refrigerator on the seafloor. After wasting 2 decades of research and tens of billions of taxpayer dollars, the Navy officially surrendered. They had to publicly admit that their brand new futuristic stealth ships could not safely clear naval mines from a combat zone. Today, the Navy is quietly and actively retiring these brand new vessels, sending them to the scrapyard because they are completely useless for the exact mission they were built to do. So, with the multi-billion-dollar tech failing, what is the United States Navy's backup plan? How do they protect the most critical geopolitical artery on the entire planet? The answer is almost too absurd to believe. The most powerful military force on Earth is currently relying on a tiny handful of rotting ships built literally out of wood. They are called the Avenger-class mine countermeasures vessels, and they were built back in the 1980s. Why are they made of wood and fiberglass? Because a traditional steel hull would instantly trigger the magnetic sensors of the mines they are trying to hunt. These ancient wooden ships are dangerously falling apart. Their diesel engines constantly break down. The critical spare parts are no longer manufactured, forcing mechanics to scavenge for pieces. To find a mine, these wooden boats have to crawl blindly through hostile waters at an agonizingly slow 2 miles per hour, dragging acoustic sleds behind them. They are forced to send human deep-sea divers into the dark, murky water to manually inspect every single piece of metallic debris they find. It is exhausting, painfully slow, and incredibly dangerous work. Because in the brutal business of mine clearing, a 99% success rate is a catastrophic failure. If Iran drops 3,000 mines, and the Navy successfully clears 2,999, the strait is still completely closed. And remember, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard will not just sit on the coastline drinking tea while the Americans slowly clear the waterway. These slow, completely unarmored wooden minesweepers moving at walking speed are the easiest targets on the ocean. The moment they start working, they will be hunted by massive swarms of suicide drones and anti-ship missiles. To protect these wooden boats, the Navy would have to surround them with billion-dollar Arleigh Burke destroyers. This acts as an anchor, forcing the fastest, most lethal warships in the US fleet to sail at a walking pace, totally stripping the American military of its greatest tactical advantage, speed and maneuverability. While this slow, agonizing process happens, the global economy will bleed to death, because the ultimate power doesn't rest in Washington or Tehran, it rests in London, with the massive maritime insurance syndicates. If there is even a rumor of a single active mine left in the Strait of Hormuz, insurance premiums for commercial shipping will skyrocket to infinity. Commercial captains will absolutely refuse to sail their multi-million-dollar supertankers into an active minefield. Oil refineries will shut down, global stock markets will violently crash, the entire Western supply chain will grind to a halt. The adversaries of the West understand this strategic paradox perfectly. They do not need to build a massive fleet of aircraft carriers to control the Middle East. They do not need advanced stealth fighters. They just need the cover of darkness, a fleet of unmarked speedboats, and a few thousand rusted metal cylinders packed with explosives and a magnetic fuse. Once those mines hit the muddy ocean floor, the geopolitical trap is irreversibly sprung. The world's most vital maritime highway instantly transforms into an impenetrable graveyard. The Pentagon is desperately scrambling, begging defense contractors to build a robotic system that actually works before the clock runs out. But right now, the terrifying truth remains: the rotting wooden ships are mathematically not enough to stop an impending economic apocalypse. The ultimate weapon against the American empire isn't a hypersonic glide vehicle or a nuclear warhead. It is a forgotten iron ball, covered in rust, waiting silently in the dark to change the fate of the world.